you would have asked me, was I an emotional person or one who experienced lots of feelings, I would have said no, many years back. Not so today. What changed? Much of that was due to my recovery work from childhood sexual abuse, specifically learning about my suppressed emotions and feelings, with the end result of discovering I had emotions and feelings. Let me unpack some of that for you in just a moment. My name is Bruce. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse and I'm a Christian. You may not hear those two statements together all that often, especially from a male, and probably that's even rarer in church life, of which I've been involved in senior leadership roles for a couple of decades. So these messages are about bringing awareness, healing and recovery to all victims of sexual abuse, but especially males. It's about going from victim to survivor to thriver. Now, I do wish to advise you of my disclaimer. I am not a medical professional, but what I intend to share is what has helped me over the years. Like myself, you need to determine what you feel is helpful and suitable for you. Suppressed emotions and feelings. Repression or suppression of emotions and feelings is a subconscious act in most instances for many victims of childhood sexual abuse. It's a protective response. The trauma of what is happening, the abuse, is so great that the mind tries to protect itself. A more simple example I can give to help explain this consequence is like when you see a movie and there's a scary scene or something that frightens you. A typical reaction is that you close your eyes. Being a movie, it's not real, and closing your eyes after you've already seen something scary doesn't wind back the clock and make you unsee what you have just seen. Nor do you plan and think out the strategy of, if I see something scary in this movie, I will close my eyes as a way of avoiding the scary experience. You don't consciously do that, you just react subconsciously. Suppressed emotions and suppressed feelings are the same. They just happen as a result of childhood sexual abuse. So repression sneaks into our lives, and often you can be unaware it's even there. You may very well be living through a duller experience of your emotions or feelings, but if that's become normal for you, if that's all you've known, then you probably know the difference, or don't know the difference, until you experience things another way. Again, if I can give a more simplistic example, I was driving my car recently, and after I started driving, it felt like the engine was not as powerful as it normally was. My forward travel seemed restrained. I then realised I had left the park brake on, the handbrake. It was restricting my ability to move forwards, but I didn't realise it at first. Once I became aware of a restriction, a suppression of acceleration, I removed the park brake and then felt forwards movement in a whole new way. Recovering from suppressed emotions and feelings can be like that. Please take those steps towards that. I can tell you from my experience, you won't realise how much you've been missing out on. I also won't make false promises to you either. It probably won't be a 100% turnaround, certainly not instantly. For me, it's been a process and I'm still on that journey. Related to suppressed emotions and feelings are repressed memories. That's when the trauma and the suffering is too great. The memories of that get buried and hidden, and it normally happens in most instances of childhood sexual abuse. Repression of memories happens when our suffering becomes unbearable. What invariably happens, though, is that the abusive events don't stay repressed forever. They may surface through intentional healing. Sometimes they surface regardless. Either way, it can be overwhelming, and if you can, reach out for support when this happens. Be kind to yourself and look after yourself. We experience repressed memories because as children we couldn't cope with the emotional reality. That's important to know and to note. Please don't blame the younger you because that happened. It probably wasn't a conscious choice. When those repressed emotions and feelings start resurfacing, they can come in a way that is often referred to as flashbacks, a sensation or experience of being taken back, as if you were back in the moment of when bad things happened, the abuse. So for those that experience flashbacks, they can alter in intensity, duration, and frequency. Flashbacks can bring back long forgotten pain or turmoil, and so of course that can be especially disturbing. Because you might be taken back through flashbacks, it can feel like the abuse is happening again. I know at times when that has happened to me, it feels like a double whammy. What I mean by that is that you experience or feel what that past abuse was like. You perhaps relive it and see the younger you in that situation. And of course that's distressing. But then it's also as if simultaneously, at the same time that this is happening, you also see this with an adult's eye and understanding. Therefore you also experience the grief and trauma of the abuse as an adult would understand it. So it can be twofold. Seeing the abuse in your mind and feeling the abuse in your adult mind with the related emotions. I'm sorry if that sounds like unwelcome news and things to expect, but that seems to be the way it happens. And if you've experienced that, like me, you may know what I'm talking about. But perhaps also hearing someone else talk about it may give you some sense of relief along the lines of, wow, somebody else had that happen too. I'm not alone. That's true. You're not alone. So understandably then, through flashbacks, it can feel like the abuse is happening again. If and when that happens, my suggestion is to ground yourself. Pivot back to the here and now. Perhaps you may need a little time to settle down. That might mean going for a walk, or maybe just leave the room or space where you are in, so that you are able to shake off any upsetting emotions or thoughts you may be experiencing. If we accept that flashbacks or recurring dreams are signs of our progress, it can make them easier to cope with, perhaps, and hopefully so. If there's a positive outcome through this all, and I believe there is, it's this. Flashbacks come because we are apparently more able to cope with them. Now you may disagree about your state of readiness, but the flashbacks may suggest otherwise. So as you come to perhaps a reluctant acceptance that flashbacks will be part of your recovery moving forwards at this point in time, then you'll probably come to understand it's not possible to experience flashbacks and dreams yet remain emotionally unaffected. That actually can be a positive outcome. I'm talking about suppressed emotions and feelings in this message, so guess what? When the suppressed feelings are no longer suppressed, you will begin to feel emotions and feelings. That's a good thing. Feeling is necessary. So as I move on to talk a bit more about feelings, it's important to understand and accept that all children are born with the need to be loved and nurtured and to feel that. For some who have experienced childhood sexual abuse, that may have prevented them from feeling or experiencing that love and nurture. Every child, in fact every human being, has a need for touch, but growing children especially. They have that need for touch, to be held or kissed. It is sometimes referred to as skin hunger. That appropriate touch is normal, and in most families, it is provided safely, but probably not in abusive homes. Or it may not happen in a home where the environment is dysfunctional, with the abuse perhaps occurring outside the home. I know this is perhaps tough stuff to hear and consider working through, but if we don't, if we stay emotionally suppressed and feelings suppressed, then we live a very silent experience, and that silence is insidious. It keeps us quiet and in bondage, lacking a life lived as intended. If you're brave, however, and continue recovery work, then we begin to develop an emotional awareness that is worth it. So in this message, I've covered the understanding that for many survivors of childhood sexual abuse, there has perhaps been levels of suppressed emotions and or suppressed feelings, a veil, if you will. You know, in the Bible, it also talks about veils that covers people's hearts and minds. And it shows that for Christians, followers of Jesus, that veil can be lifted. An understanding can come. A release can come from where there was perhaps a restriction, suppression. Let me read these two Bible verses to you. This is from 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 15 to 17. Even to this day, when Moses is read, a veil covers their hearts. But whenever anyone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. That's a great promise and a reality. I would encourage you to allow that to be true for you also, to allow the veil to be lifted, to work on removing the suppressed emotions and feelings you may have in your life as you continue your recovery. Well, I accept this message may have been challenging, perhaps confronting for some, but it is worth the work. Believe it or not, things can get better, and let me promote the next message in this recovery series to you that deals with relating to others. Because when you become more in touch with your emotions and feelings, it will be time to gain more depth and satisfaction as you relate to others. I look forward to sharing that message with you. Thank you for joining me with this content. It's always my intention that this helps you or helps you to help others. In addition to other content like this, I wanted to make sure you know that I have an introduction clip and also my personal testimony. I encourage you to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you are notified when additional content is available. Perhaps a little strange on a channel like this is the like button, but I would ask you to press that if you have found this content helpful. I hope you join me again soon.